Hello and welcome to Payback 2020 predictions. This is Duncan Lievi, and I hope I do better than last time, actually. SummerSlam 2020, I got 5 out of 8 matches correct. Before that, WrestleMania, I predicted 13 matches and I got 9 correct. So I think my overall tally stands at 14 out of 21. Success rate being 66.67%. I've got to get better. We'll see how that goes. My predictions are of two kinds. The first is the unofficial prediction, which is what I would like to see happen, a more personal take on the ongoing storylines, and whom I would like to see winning. The second kind is the official prediction, the practical prediction, the WWE logic prediction. So, with that said, let's get down to the card. The timestamp for the official prediction starting will be in the description of the video for those who are here only for that. Now, the card. In the pre-show, the Iconics take on the Riott Squad. Bayley and Banks defend their Women's Tag Team Championships against Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax. Matt Riddle making his pay-per-view main roster pay-per-view debut against King Corbin. Big E takes on Sheamus. Apollo Crews defends his United States Championship against Bobby Lashley. He will be flanked by the Hurt Business, presumably. Dominic Mysterio pairs up with his father, the legendary Rey Mysterio, against the greater good, which is Seth Rollins and Murphy. Randy Orton takes on Keith Lee. The latter will be making his pay-per-view debut on the main roster, in which is presumably the main event of the evening. Roman Reigns returns to compete for the Universal Championship, taking on Braun Strowman and the Universal Champion, the Fiend, Bray Wyatt. Now, unofficial predictions, what I would like to see happen. The Iconics versus the Riott Squad. The Riott Squad has to win. Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan have been losing again and again to Peyton Royce and Billie Kay over and over again. I don't think they have a single victory. Also, I think this has been forgiven in large part because of Peyton Royce's amazing new finisher. But anyway, I need to see the Riott Squad pick up a victory to validate their reunion. Otherwise, it's losing steam. And so far, it's good. I mean, it makes sense to me because the storyline that I hope that is the logic, that they have been apart for quite some time, and bringing them together doesn't immediately guarantee success. But this is the stage where I would like to see them pick up a victory to boost momentum moving forward. Then we have Bayley and Banks taking on Bayley and Banks taking on Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax. Now, what I would like to see happen is Bayley and Banks retaining. Even though I would like to see some miscommunication between them, which would threaten them losing their titles. I know this is not a popular decision because everyone wants to see the conclusion to this storyline and we get to the last act, which is Banks versus Bayley. But I think that's a WrestleMania program, and I don't want to see it right now. And I know it's already been drawn out, it's been teased for so long, but still, I think the payoff will be huge leading into WrestleMania next year. Anyway, so that's what I would like to see happen, them retaining Bayley and Banks. The Golden Role Models retain their tag team championships. That's what I would like to see happen. Matt Riddle versus Baron Corbin. What would I like to see happen? Again, controversial. I want to see Baron Corbin win sometimes because he always loses, even though I love his insistence on having the end of days be an actual finisher, in that people don't kick out of it, like the punt. I'll get back to that later. But I want to see Baron Corbin pick up a victory. I know it's Matt Riddle's pay-per-view debut, but he could lose with shenanigans. The added bonus is you have Shorty G in the background, who's there to mess with Matt Riddle, distract him, use nefarious means, and maybe help Baron Corbin pick up the victory. Next up, we have Big E taking on Sheamus. What would I like to see happen? Big E win. Crush Sheamus. This has to happen for Big E's much-awaited and finally happening singles run. Apollo Crews versus Bobby Lashley. What would I like to see happen? Bobby Lashley winning. No doubt. He needs to win. He's a monster. He's amazing. His physique is great. He's wrestling really well. It just makes too much sense for him to win. He has to win. And the Hurt Business always looks better with some gold draped around its waist. it's collective wastes. Now we have Mysterios taking on the greater good. What would I like to see happen? See, Seth Rollins, either in tag team or singles competition, has been absolutely crushing them. Crushing Rey Mysterio, first with the eye thing, then all the side characters being Humberto Carrillo or Aleister Black. Everyone's been decimated by the greater good. So it's about time for someone to hand them an L. So I would like to see the Mysterios win. Big time, because it's really emotional. It's the tag team of Rey and his son against the very good heel. So it makes sense for the Mysterios to pick up the victory. That's what I'd like to see happen. Now, Orton versus Keith Lee. What would I like to see happen? There's a lot about this match that I want to get off my chest, and I will at the end of this video. But first, I'd like to see Orton win, because you just can't have him lose again. He has way too much heat, and I think the WWE is not acknowledging how much heat he has, even though he's been coined the greatest wrestler ever by Ric Flair. It just doesn't feel like it anymore. I think his momentum has been hurt by recent booking, especially last Monday's Raw. Oh my God, it was horrible. But anyway, I want to see Orton win. The main event, Roman versus The Fiend versus Braun Strowman. What would I like to see happen? I would like to see The Fiend retain. Why? Because The Fiend has been destroyed already when Goldberg defeated The Fiend at Saudi Arabia's show earlier this year in the lead up to WrestleMania. He should not be losing matches that easily. Anyone defeating him should have a massive, massive boost in that direction. Into the main event, they should get a massive boost. There should be a lot of momentum heading into the match for the person in the other match. And it can be argued that Roman Reigns, of course, has so much momentum after his return, but The Fiend has just been recrowned the Universal Champion, and I don't want to see him lose it yet, because otherwise he's quote-unquote buried again already. And it doesn't even have to be Roman losing, of course. You can't have him lose, I realize that. But there's a lot of benefit in the chase right now. So I'd have The Fiend pin Braun Strowman again. I mean, he's already been champion. He'll always... I'm talking about Braun Strowman. He's already been champion. He will always have that on his resume for the rest of his career. So Braun Strowman can just lose now. Even though I don't want to see him completely crushed, but he can afford... He's, out of the three people, he's the one who can afford to lose this match the most. So have The Fiend pin Braun Strowman. Easy peasy. The Fiend retains the championship. Roman can still be booked strong, very strong. His recent change in character is very intriguing. I am really looking forward to see what happens with him for the first time in ages. So yeah, that's what I would like to see happen. The Fiend retain. Now these are the official predictions. Now, whew, it's been an interesting few months. The pandemic era is really stacked with a lot of uncertainty, and I like that. I like the fact that SummerSlam was so unpredictable. Not readily predictable, not obviously predictable. So, practical predictions as follows. The Iconics versus the Riott Squad. The Iconics. I think the Iconics are going to pick up the victory again for some reason. I think I've read reports about Vince McMahon being really high on Peyton Royce, and I think this would be another chapter in that story. And from then, you can have the Riott Squad just beat up some fringe teams, even though I'm not sure who, because you don't have those many women's teams on the Raw roster. Anyway, so Iconics. Bayley and Banks against Baszler and Jax. I think they're gonna really quickly pull the brakes on this build up and finally really dive into the split portion of the storyline. What am I talking about? Bayley against Banks. So they're gonna lose. I think Jax and Baszler both become women's champions, and this is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. And very soon we're going to see Banks and Bayley completely disrupt as a team and take each other on. So, Jackson Baszler, official prediction. Matt Riddle against Baron Corbin. I've said that I want Corbin to win because he never wins. I think he's not going to win tonight. I think Matt Riddle, given the fact that it's his debut on the main roster and how great a performer he is, I think Riddle is going to pick up the victory in spite of Chad Gable having some sort of role to play in the match. Big E against Sheamus. I think Big E is going to win. Everything points toward him winning. Sheamus beat Jeff Hardy the one time, lost to Jeff Hardy, and I think Sheamus can afford to lose again. Even though I would have liked to see Sheamus enter the Intercontinental title scene, I think that's his next stop, because that would be really interesting now with AJ Styles and the returning, what's his name, Sami Zayn, and AJ Styles, Sami Zayn, and someone else also returned. Shinsuke Nakamura, of course, will also be part of that storyline, hopefully, and Jeff Hardy, of course, the champion. So the IC title scene is very crowded, and I like that. The mid-card title feels very relevant. Anyway, Big E to win against Sheamus, official prediction. Cruz against Lashley. What I think will happen, official prediction, is Lashley. It just makes too much sense. You can't have him booked so strong and then lose to Apollo Crews, even though Apollo Crews beat MVP. So what? Lashley is going to be primed to be a WWE championship contender soon, so it only makes sense for him to win the tertiary championship. Now, Mysterios against the greater good. What do I think is going to happen? I think Mysterios are going to win. There's just too much historical significance here. Rey Mysterio, I think he's re-signed. I'm not entirely sure about that, but I think he's re-signed with the WWE, and a lot of that was predicated on Dominic Mysterio being featured heavily on WWE programming, which means that you cannot have Dominic lose his second consecutive pay-per-view. You know what I'm saying? You just can't have Rey Mysterio being a part of it, his first match with his kid as his teammate, and not just him serving as a manager. Rey Mysterio has to win. Dominic Mysterio also has to win, and Rollins can take one loss. They can just pin Murphy, and Rollins gets away. Then brewing that singles blow-off match against Seth Rollins of either Mysterio. It doesn't really matter at this point. And Dominic can work. He can at least take a beating. He can sell well, so it's a good platform for that to happen. Mysterio's to win. Orton versus Keith Lee. Okay. Whew. Orton versus Keith Lee. My official prediction is that they're going to have Keith Lee win. And then you can go to the timestamp for the next one if you don't want an elongated portion or explanation of this match and why this frustrates me. So I've gone on a rampage on WWE's official channel videos, comment sections, about the fact that the punt is just almost dead. Because Randy Orton, if someone missed Raw, punted Drew McIntyre 3 times. And the third time put Drew McIntyre in a hospital. And I remember that it took only one to put people out of commission. And by that I mean they were out for months, if not more, if not for years. Bray Wyatt got punted, Husky Harris got punted, became Bray Wyatt, came back to NXT as a completely different person. All members of CM Punk's Nexus were obliterated in the lead up to Orton's WrestleMania match against CM Punk. I think it was WrestleMania 26, one of the better matches on that show. 27, not 26. WrestleMania 27. So, the punt has been this protected move. Not just protected, it's been the move to write people off television. It's been the move which implies destruction. More than Big Show's KO punch, more than every other move other than Razor Ramon's Razor's Edge. The insistence on Razor Ramon's part was that he just did not hit the move unless he was going to win right after. And I hope that the punt would have that same protection from Randy Orton. I've actually tweeted to Randy Orton with no avail because I have no followers. But I tweeted to Randy Orton to protect the punt because I sense that it's coming to an end. Orton brought back the punt as part of the finishing sequence of the greatest wrestling match ever, and he put away Edge. And I was so happy. I jumped off my seat, and I was really pumped about that. Following that on Raw, Randy Orton punted Christian, and Christian disappeared. And then he punted Big Show, and Big Show disappeared. And then he punted, or not punted, well, we'll see what the lights flickering was all about, but Orton punted Ric Flair, and Ric Flair was dead, figuratively. And then you have Orton punting. This is where it gets strange. Just 2 weeks ago, HBK, Shawn Michaels, returned to WWE to address the fact that Orton had punted Ric Flair. And Orton attacked HBK RKO, punt, and HBK's freaking moving. Why is he moving? I didn't understand that. I thought they were killing the punt right there and then. And then, if that was not bad enough, this week on Raw, after SummerSlam, where Drew McIntyre successfully defended his WWE Championship against the Viper, courtesy, it was not a roll-up, it was a hook. McIntyre hooked Orton's shoulders and pinned him. It was a surprise pinning predicament, as JR would put it. And then Orton lost, but it was a very fluky, indecisive conclusion to the match, which would of course mean that there are more matches in this rivalry. But what irks me is the fact that to begin the night on Raw last week, Orton attacked McIntyre and hit not one but 2 punts, and McIntyre was still stirring. Of course, he was of course not fully there. He was suffering damage, as is the minimum that should be. But then Orton versus Keith Lee on Raw, and McIntyre interrupts the match, interferes, attacks Orton. But the fact is, he should not be moving. That is the most protected move of all time. It has never been kicked out. It puts people out for months, if not years, as I mentioned. So the move is coming to an end, and I'm not sure why it affects me. I think it's one of those magical things about WWE that I see coming to an end, and I don't want it to happen. You know, the Undertaker's streak, Asuka's winning streak, which concluded at WrestleMania, I think 34, against Charlotte, and Dean Ambrose's heel turn in 2018, I believe. So there were these magical things that WWE just killed, and I think the punt has a history of 13 years of destruction, and I don't want it to be killed courtesy of making Drew McIntyre look strong for one match. He already is amazing. Drew McIntyre is too big a star to require that kind of a rub. So, just like Brock Lesnar didn't need to beat the streak to be a big deal. Anyway, so now that I've digressed that much and why I think the punt has been killed, and now I should mention how that is relevant to predictions. You can't have Orton lose, but I think they will have Orton lose because Keith Lee's a big-time star, and he's supposed to be Drew McIntyre's friend. They had that video of Lee and McIntyre discussing their respective SummerSlam opponents in what seemed to be an NXT ring in the lead-up to SummerSlam. So there's a connection there. The only way for Orton to win this match, to me, according to WWE's logic, is if McIntyre interferes again, costing Lee the victory, giving Orton the disqualification victory. If you have Orton go over clean, which is what I would like to see happen, but Lee would lose significant amount of heat if you do that. If Orton has to win, he has to win with 2 RKOs, at least, on Keith Lee because of the magnitude of star he is. I think this entire match should not be happening at all. It's a creative misstep. It's WWE painting itself into a corner again. But anyway, if you have McIntyre interfere, it would again kill the mystique of the punt. The third punt, by the way, last week, the third punt put McIntyre in the hospital. Apparent kayfabe skull fracture. So I don't know. I just don't know. I don't like the manufacture of this match. But anyway, my official prediction is Lee winning, costing Orton all of his amazing momentum. But that is just what WWE often does. I cannot wait. I hope to be proven wrong about this. Now, on to the main event, finally. Roman Reigns versus The Fiend versus Braun Strowman. What do I think is going to happen? Of course, Roman Reigns is going to win because he's back. He brought back so many YouTube views, and so many fans were out of their seats because, well, Roman Reigns is a big deal for all the polarizing reception that he gets, but also because he's a big-time star, and everyone knows that. Everyone knows how much YouTube traffic he commands and how much he's been promoted, even during his absence from WWE programming due to his immunocompromisation. But Roman Reigns just has to win, right? That is WWE logic, and I would not mind it if he beats Strowman. That is what I think. I think he's going to spear Strowman out of his boots and win the Universal Championship, which I believe he said he never lost. So I think he's not won it ever since he relinquished the title because of what? Because of the resurfacing of his leukemia 2 years ago. So, anyway, that is my official prediction, Roman Reigns. So to quickly recap, by the way, Roman Reigns' character is amazing so far. I mean, upon his return, it seems like he's got a heel turn, and with Paul Heyman by his side, it's going to be pretty good. I hope so. I cannot wait to see what's next for Roman Reigns for the first time, like I said, since 2014. Elimination Chamber 2014, I believe that's the last time I was interested in Roman Reigns specifically. Anyway, so, just a roundup of the practical predictions. The Iconics, Jackson Baszler beating Banks and Bayley, Matt Riddle winning his pay-per-view debut, main roster pay-per-view debut, Big E beating Sheamus, Lashley beating Cruz, title change, the Mysterios beating Seth Rollins and Murphy, Roman Reigns becoming the new Universal Champion, title change, and Keith Lee beating Randy Orton. So yeah, that's my predictions. We'll see how it goes. I'll try to get out a Payback review video later today or tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. Until next time, this is Duncan Lievi. Thanks for watching.